You ever feel like you're in a fight that nobody else can even see? You know, a personal struggle that takes absolutely every ounce of your strength? Well, there's this powerful idea in Christian theology that uses wrestling as an analogy for that exact feeling, this intense, one-on-one spiritual conflict. And today, we are going to break down the entire playbook.
This one verse from Ephesians, it's the foundation for this whole concept. It completely flips the script on our struggles. It tells us the real fight isn't with flesh and blood, other people, but with these unseen spiritual forces. And that idea alone sets the stage for a totally different kind of battle.
So what does spiritual wrestling actually mean? Well, think of it as a direct, face-to-face struggle for control against a spiritual opponent. And here's the most important part. It is not a team sport. This is an intensely personal match where it's just you, one-on-one, against your opponent.
Okay, so just like any athlete, if you're stepping into a fight, you have to train, right? So our first stop is preparation. Let's talk about how you get into shape for a spiritual match.
The whole idea here is a direct comparison between the physical and the spiritual. A regular wrestler needs physical training, a good diet, and they have to know the rules. While the spiritual version is exactly the same. You need spiritual training, a diet of God's word and prayer, and you have to know the rules of spiritual warfare. The arena might be different, but the principles for getting ready, they are identical.
And just like building any muscle, spiritual strength comes from practice. If you neglect that training, you are going to get hit with spiritual fatigue. You'll get worn out, you'll get tired, and you'll become a really easy target. So in this framework, consistent training isn't just a good idea, it's absolutely essential if you want to survive in the ring.
But training is only half the battle. To win, you've got to know your opponent. So think of this next section like an intelligence briefing. We are opening up the enemy's playbook to see exactly how they operate.
And from this perspective, the rules of engagement are, well, they're pretty brutal. First off, there are no substitutes. You can't tag anyone in to take your place. Second, there are no timeouts. The opponent is relentless. And third, stalling is the same as losing. Any moment you spend avoiding the fight, you are losing ground.
So, this opponent has a go-to three-step playbook. It always starts with a mental attack, trying to knock you off balance with doubt and feelings of weakness. Then, once you're distracted, they use a surprise move to hide the real attack. And finally, they use bait and temptation to try and lure you into a vulnerable spot.
So the whole strategy is misdirection. It's all about getting you off balance. The opponent wants you to get so focused on one little distraction over here that you don't even see the real assault being launched in a completely different area of your life where your guard is down.
To show you what this looks like, the source gives this pretty wild example. A woman has a major spiritual breakthrough, right? And the very next day, 4 of her ex-boyfriends suddenly show up out of the blue. This is framed as a classic counterattack. It's a sign that the opponent will fight tooth and nail to immediately get back any ground that's been lost.
All right, we've seen the opponent's playbook. So what's the counter move? This next part is all about your game plan for victory. The proactive and defensive moves you have to master to win.
The winning strategy is built on 3 key skills. First up is anticipation, being so spiritually in tune that you can actually sense the opponent's next move before it happens. Second is mobility. A stagnant target is an easy target, so you have to stay spiritually active. And finally, recovery. Look, you're going to get knocked down. The key is knowing how to get back up, because one fall does not mean the match is over.
So here's the thing to remember. This isn't some chaotic street brawl, it's a chess match. Every single positive move you make will be met with a counter move from the opponent. That means you have to think ahead, anticipate the response, and plan your moves carefully.
But beyond any single strategy, the most important thing is your mental game. Victory demands a very specific mindset, one that's built on 3 core pillars.
This mindset has 3 parts. First, you need a will to win that's way stronger than just a wish to win. Second, you need persistence, an absolute refusal to give up or accept defeat. And third, you need a crystal clear purpose, and that purpose is to win. These 3 things, together, they form the champion's mindset.
And that brings us to our final section, the ultimate victory. What's the real endgame here? What is the point of all this wrestling? Let's dig into the theological belief about how this match actually ends.
So the objective isn't just to survive the fight or stay on your feet. The goal is way bigger than that. It's to break the opponent's power and make him fall.
It's about a decisive, final victory.
But this is where we get to a core theological belief that changes everything. According to this teaching, you are wrestling with an opponent who has already been defeated. You're wrestling with the loser.
See, the core belief is that the enemy was already beaten by the single most effective move in all of history, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That move already decided the match, and that means you aren't fighting for victory, you're fighting from a position of victory.
And think about what that means. It completely reframes the whole conflict. The struggle is no longer about trying to win a fight that's up in the air. Instead, it's about enforcing a victory that has already been won. The wrestling becomes about holding on to and demonstrating a reality that's already been decided.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty big question at the very heart of this whole belief system. If the match is already decided, and the opponent is already a loser, then why on earth is the wrestling still so necessary?